right, before we put the shock in, I wanted to cover a couple things. The stock shock is a hydraulic style shock, which means wherever you put it, or however you push on it, it's going to hold the pressure, or the fluid is squeezed through a membrane or smaller holes or larger holes, depending on how the shock is valved. The valve is just simply the holes in the fluid travel through it to slow down the movement of this large piston. So the stock one is a decent unit. It's large. I think it's plenty big for 33, 35-inch tires. You start getting into 37s, I think you want a little bit more control. So this is fine. I would even say for street use, this is fine. I wanted to go a little bit to match all my shocks on my truck, but I got this Fox Performance piece from Fox. This isn't the Mopar one, and it's the part number 985-24173. This is for the JL and JT trucks. You can use the stock hardware, but what I've chose to do was use a mount under the Jeep with hardware from Synergy. These guys. So the shock, you can see there's two different styles. This one's under pressure, so when I put a little bit more weight on it, you can see it's taking me a little bit more time to put it under there. But if I let that go and you sit there and watch it ever so slightly, it's pushing back out. It's actually moving. So okay, well, enough of that. As you can see, it starts pushing back out. The difference is in the valving in this is it's gas charged. So these are kind of a monotube style. They're from, they're valved and they're pressured to Fox spec, and that's how they service them right there. So these are a little bit nicer units. They're aluminum. They're billet. You can see the quality. They're CNC. And it almost looks like a lathe. The end of a lathe was put on there, and then they're turned, and then they're cut out. Really nice units, and they're not expensive. This was $120 some on Amazon, so not super expensive. And you can use these on your stock truck. Just bolt them in with the stock hardware. Nothing fancy needed. I went ahead and opted for the Synergy kit, and so let's get under the truck, and now you know a little bit of the difference between a hydraulic shock and a monotube pressurized shock. That's what you see in the descriptions when you're buying shocks from your parts store or your parts guy. Alright, so you can see I just have it, I don't have any Loctite on any of this stuff yet, and I'm just kind of eyeballing where the bolt's going to mount here at the track bar location. This is the 1 5/8 unit from Synergy. I have a Fox stabilizer for a JL JT, and this is from Fox directly, not the Mopar version. I think they're probably the same, but part number is going to be different. And then right now as it sits, it's centered, but the shock is completely extended to the that would be to the driver's side. So in order for it to be centered up, I have to take the distance, split it. So it has to be about right here. I told you 3 3/4 in the last part of that video on the bench, and then so I'll move this down 3 3/4 of an inch from where it's at now. And I mean, there's multiple ways to do this, but I could also just crank the wheel all the way to the driver's side and then just line it up, and then we'll put our track bar bolt on. So we'll get to that next. Okay, just had my 10-year-old boy turn the steering wheel. So when you turn the steering wheel and you're moving the drag link to the side of the truck, if you have this disconnected, this track bar bolt, this is the rock crawler track bar, nice and beefy. So if you have another person turn your steering wheel while this is disconnected, you can actually line this bolt up without having a ratchet strap or an extra set of hands. I just had my son come in, I turned the engine on and just had him turn the steering wheel until I got the bolt lined up. And so I apologize for all the jet engine noise and car engine noise and all that stuff. So you can see that kind of can be a pain if you don't have a extra set of hands to go turn the steering wheel for you. But that's all there is to that. So let's go ahead and get the shock and everything mounted up and finish this up. Alright, so to wrap this up, I think the steering stabilizer is maybe kind of a catch-all. I don't really think that it does a whole lot. If your steering is set up properly, it might take out some of the oscillation when you hit a bump. I noticed that I ran probably for almost a month without a steering stabilizer due to the parts being unavailable just for a bolt to go on the track bar. But I used the Synergy relocation brackets, and I used a Fox steering stabilizer for a JL Wrangler, and I'll put all the parts numbers in the description. I got them all from Amazon, and the whole setup was like $200. It should keep everything off the rocks or off the dirt when I'm going off road for whatever camping trips, things like that. I don't do a lot of rock crawling, but I think it's good to get it up out of the stock location because it's going to drag on the ground. The stock unit, as you can see, is pretty beefy, and I think it's substantial even for 35s, even 37s. I went ahead and did the Fox shock because I wanted to have that matching shock for the suspension, as well as I think it just kind of was nice to be able to give you a review of what I think of it. I don't think it's all that necessary. If I had to do it again, that would have been one of the very last things I ever do. The stock unit is plenty strong. Just relocating it with the Synergy bracket would have been, I think, the better way to go. You don't really need the Fox. So that about wraps this one up. I hope you guys learned something, and maybe I learned something along the way. And like, subscribe, leave a comment, let me know what you guys think, and what's the next video. Thanks, guys.